Nicole Mitchell is lying on her in the bathroom following the officer's instructions. She hears Carol Mitchell's voice in the background. And that's when Nicole Mitchell says, "It's Nicole. I was just trying to get a couple of my dad's things because you wouldn't talk to me anymore." Now, in this moment, Nicole knows something that nobody else knows. Nicole knows that Carol's Alzheimer's is much worse than Carol wants people to believe. Nicole knows that Carol's Alzheimer's is even worse than Carol herself understands. Nicole's parents were young when she was born, and they actually separated very early. It was so early, in fact, that Carol, being with her dad, Rod, is one of Nicole's earliest memories. Nicole is a hard worker. This is something that started in childhood. There are messages she hears, sometimes a glance, sometimes a casual comment, that makes her think she isn't good enough. Her response is to work in school, to work in activities, to work at everything. Nicole actually spent a lot of time with her dad and Carol. Most of her summers, in fact, were around them here in DL. They did big activities, small activities. They camped a lot. They took summer trips. In her teens, Nicole had a really strained relationship with her biological mom down in the cities. And it was so strained, in fact, she seriously considered living with her dad and Carol here in Detroit Lakes. The fact is, there were plenty of good things in Nicole's relationship with Carol. Carol would take her to the beach. They'd go to Zorba's. They'd go clothes shopping. Nicole actually felt more comfortable talking with Carol about boys than she did with her own mom. Nicole graduated from high school at 17 and went right into the military. This provided an opportunity to escape a pretty unhealthy situation at home. There's dark challenges that she experienced in the military, though, things that she wished hadn't happened. But the combination of both support and challenge, they sharpened and they strengthened her. Nicole graduated from college, and she continued in her military career working as a meteorologist. Among the many things Nicole did in the military was working as a hurricane hunter, flying into hurricanes to gather weather data. Nicole Mitchell feels joy, loneliness, happiness, and sadness like all of us. But she has long functioned in an environment where emotions are a liability. Nicole has been trained by life to hold her emotions in, to not let them completely come through. Along the way, Nicole went to law school and became a licensed attorney. And although she doesn't practice law actively, she has donated her time as a lawyer, including the program Wills for Heroes and other work related to children in the courtroom. She has been motivated to provide assistance and care to kids that she didn't always have when she was growing up. There wasn't a lot of money growing up in her mom's home. And so as an adult, she has worked multiple professional jobs, and she saves her money. She knows she's fortunate to have resources. Nicole has two sons, Sam and Liam. One she delivered and one she adopted. She balances her life among these interests: her children, her role as a legislator, her role as a daughter, her career in the military. There is very little time left for Nicole, but she is wired to engage the world this way, and she is comfortable with the balance that she's chosen. Nicole Mitchell is a person who always gets things done. She always follows through and keeps her word. Her persistence can be counted on. And when problems come up in the family, she takes the initiative to fix those problems. Losing a parent is always hard. For Nicole, her father Rod's death seemed to come too early, and it also came at a time when Carol was in decline. Carol relied on Rod. He dealt with the logistics of the house, the bills, and many other things. Now, for Nicole, trying to step up for Carol took a lot of juggling, but she did it. Nicole talked, she called, she talked, she checked in. She started a group chat with Carol and her aunts to keep Carol engaged and connected. Nicole actually checked out lawyers to help Carol with the estate. Then, when Carol Mitchell said she'd actually hired Charlie Ramstad, a local attorney, Nicole checked him out and learned he was experienced, and that he also had represented the DL Police Department. Sometimes Carol's moods would turn on a dime. She could be loving and paranoid in the same day. Carol accused Nicole and her aunts of stealing a tin box that was supposedly full of documents, and Carol accused them of being obsessed with money. Now, this was false. But despite the false accusation, Nicole persevered, and she did everything she could to make the situation better. Even as she's dealing with her own children, her own grief, the grief of her own children. No matter how Nicole gets treated, she can't write off a family member. By the time Nicole drove to Carol's in April of 2024, Nicole's dad had been dead for more than a year. A year of Carol throwing out, giving away, and donating Rod's things. For all Nicole knew, there may not have been any of Rod's personal belongings even left in the house. Nicole knew that Carol was declining, and eventually Carol wouldn't be able to take care of herself. Nicole actually even went so far as to suggest that Carol could move down to Woodbury, where Nicole lives. Nicole had actually found a facility that would be perfect for Carol. She offered to let Carol stay with her if necessary, because the best facilities often have wait lists. Carol had no interest in this.
Mr. Ringstrom.
Yes, Rod.
I'm going to interrupt, and if you would approach Mr. McDonald.
That Rod really loved Carol Mitchell. Whatever else was true about Nicole Mitchell's relationship with Carol Mitchell, the fact that her dad loved Carol Mitchell so much made Nicole Mitchell loyal to Carol Mitchell. In the fall of 2023, Nicole Mitchell was visiting Carol Mitchell. Carol Mitchell didn't want computers in the house. It was her view that removing the computers would remove the internet. Nicole Mitchell tried to explain to her that this isn't how it works. Carol Mitchell was adamant. So, Nicole Mitchell accepted one of the laptops. She thought she might use it for video games for the boys. As it turns out, it was a bit too old and slow for this. Nicole Mitchell finally hit a tipping point in the spring of 2024 when Carol Mitchell arranged for Rod's ashes to be interred at a time when Nicole Mitchell and Rod's own grandchildren couldn't possibly attend the ceremony. Carol Mitchell and Nicole Mitchell had been at odds before, but for Carol Mitchell to do something that kept Nicole Mitchell from saying a final goodbye to her dad, that meant that Carol Mitchell was really struggling with something. It was too much to leave alone. Carol Mitchell needed help, and she was not getting it. In the midst of this concern, Nicole Mitchell is doing spring cleaning and comes back to the laptop that Carol Mitchell gave her. The investigation of the laptop made her realize that it provided an insight into Carol Mitchell's life and into her decline. She was able to see Carol Mitchell's Sanford account online and see Carol's medical records. Nicole Mitchell saw that her stepmom's Alzheimer's diagnosis was worsening. Nicole Mitchell saw that Carol Mitchell got lost going to a doctor's appointment. An appointment that was on a Wednesday, but once at the doctor's, Carol Mitchell was confused about the day, thinking it was a Tuesday. Nicole Mitchell also saw that other people weren't attending any of these doctor's appointments with Carol Mitchell. So Nicole Mitchell knows that Carol Mitchell has a problem. Nicole Mitchell's aunts know it too, and it's something that actually discussed. She wasn't sure how bad it had gotten, and it wasn't clear whether Carol Mitchell had declined enough for the state to intervene. Nicole Mitchell had done the research and knew it was difficult to get the state to intervene with someone who has some dementia. Now, since other family members weren't stepping up, Nicole Mitchell decides that she needs to know for sure. Is Carol Mitchell losing too much weight? Is she drinking too much? Is she living in a dangerous situation? You see, this is something very real for Nicole Mitchell. Her aunt's ex-husband died after falling down all alone. No one was there to call 911. No one found him for a while. Nicole was very fond of him. Nicole Mitchell was very fond of him. The same was true for another one of Nicole Mitchell's relatives, her Aunt Georgette. She too fell by herself. And her son, who was supposed to be checking in on her, had dropped the ball. So by the time her aunt was found, she was unconscious and barely alive. She died just weeks later. For those kinds of tragedies to be a real thing in her life, it hit home. There were other events in Nicole Mitchell's life where she waited until it was too late. Nicole Mitchell had experienced losses because she trusted authorities to make the right choice. The fear of loss and regret burned inside her. On April 22nd, 2024, Nicole brings 2 laptops. Hers to document the house, and Carol's to return it. This is a house she has been in many times. She has a key. But Carol Mitchell has started barricading the doors with special bars. So in order to check on Carol Mitchell, she has to go in through an egress window. Nicole Mitchell sees things that bother her. A stack of bills and papers on top of the stove. A bit of disarray here and there. But Nicole's biggest concern is that Carol Mitchell seems to be getting lost. So Nicole Mitchell searches for Carol Mitchell's phone so she can make sure it's functioning properly and check for evidence of scams. Carol Mitchell got lost on her way to a doctor's appointment. Carol had begun needing help to find places she'd driven to and from for decades. Although Carol Mitchell has always managed to find someone to help her when she's lost, Nicole's fear is that that luck won't hold. Carol Mitchell will eventually get herself so lost, there will be no one to help. Or she'll ask the wrong person who's going to do her harm. But either way, Nicole Mitchell is afraid that the time will come when it comes too late. As Nicole Mitchell is checking on Carol Mitchell wakes up. Carol Mitchell is instantly angry and scared. Carol Mitchell yells at Nicole Mitchell. The fact that Carol Mitchell wakes up takes Nicole Mitchell completely by surprise, and she races back downstairs. Nicole Mitchell stays where she's at for several minutes, waiting for law enforcement to arrive. As law enforcement investigates, she puts her hands up so they can do their job safely. But it is surreal. Even more jarring than that is hearing the voice of Carol Mitchell in a tone that she has heard for 45 years. Now, what Nicole wished she had said is, Carol, you can't take care of yourself. You could start a fire with all the bills on the stove. You get lost going to doctor's appointments for your Alzheimer's, and no one is there helping you get to those appointments. You're getting days mixed up. You're not responding to texts and calls. You're barricading your doors at night. You've gotten too thin in a scary and unhealthy way. The doctor's summary says you're drinking regularly, whereas you never used to do that before. You introduced me to Jonathan, your son, at Dad's funeral as if we had never met, when we have known each other for years. You had stacks of unopened bills, making me worried that you weren't paying them, and you might fall behind or lose the house. You should probably have your driver's license taken away. Dad loved you so much, and I love you. And I will step up and care for you if no one else will. But in that moment, Nicole Mitchell can't bring herself to say that in front of these police officers, to risk enraging Carol Mitchell by saying those things that make her feel vulnerable and defensive. Nicole Mitchell feels everything she felt about Carol Mitchell when she was a little girl. Love, fear, dread of criticism. Nicole Mitchell knows that if she says what she feels about Carol Mitchell's decline, that Carol Mitchell is going to be truly outraged and fearful of being put into an assisted living facility. When Carol Mitchell finally realizes that it's Nicole Mitchell, she quickly accuses Nicole Mitchell of stealing papers and wanting money. It's the tin box again. The tin box that Carol Mitchell is fixated on. And so in the midst of police in the house, Carol Mitchell and Nicole Mitchell have a small argument that is completely separate from what's going on. Carol Mitchell says Nicole Mitchell wants money. And Nicole Mitchell says, in effect, I never wanted money. I just wanted a couple of my dad's things. Knowing how angry Carol Mitchell would be if Carol Mitchell realized that Nicole Mitchell is gathering evidence of her decline, Nicole Mitchell instead says something that's really part of a spat that Carol Mitchell and Nicole Mitchell have been having for over a year. It's Nicole. I was just trying to get a couple of my dad's things because you wouldn't talk to me anymore. The rules say that we are allowed to tell you our defense during this opening statement. By the time Nicole drives to Carol's house in April of 2024, Nicole Mitchell has had the same familiar car for almost 20 years. Rod and Carol Mitchell's neighbors know Nicole Mitchell. So Nicole makes it a point to arrive when it is dark, to park on a side street, to wear dark clothing, and to be quiet. When you're checking on a paranoid loved one and hoping they don't notice, you take great pains to be unnoticed. Nicole Mitchell knows this house almost as well as her own. She moves very easily through it. When Nicole Mitchell comes into Carol Mitchell's bedroom to actually check on her and see if the phone is there, Carol Mitchell wakes up. The situation that Nicole Mitchell creates, with law enforcement everywhere, their guns properly drawn, rightly concerned for their safety and for Carol Mitchell's safety, it leaves Nicole Mitchell unable to think clearly. From the moment that Carol Mitchell starts yelling at Nicole, all the way until jailers put her in her cell for the day, Nicole Mitchell doesn't have an ability to think about what's happening or what she is saying. But the fact is, and the evidence will show this, that the government knew from the beginning why Nicole Mitchell was there. They knew that she wanted to check on an aging parent who couldn't find her way to places she'd been countless times. Our defense is that there is no clear roadmap for helping an aging parent. They can have good days and bad days. There can be angry resistance to the help offered. And there can come a point where help was obviously needed because it's too late to intervene. Nicole feared being too late. Nicole takes responsibility for her actions, including when she messes up. If the government had charged her with trespassing, she would have pleaded guilty. But that's not an option. The government decides the charges. We don't decide, you don't decide, neither does Carol nor Nicole. A person can be not guilty of charges the government brings, even when they could be guilty of charges the government never brought. For the charge here, there are only two possible verdicts. Guilt is proven beyond a reasonable doubt by the government, or guilt is not proven beyond a reasonable doubt by the government. And you're going to get a specific definition of burglary. And that definition might be very different from what your personal feeling is. It doesn't matter how they're dressed. It doesn't matter what tools they have. It doesn't matter how dark it was when they trespassed on someone's home. It doesn't even matter if they have lockpick tools or other fancy equipment. On its own, that could be a different crime, but not burglary. What matters for burglary is that they got in without permission and they intended to commit a crime inside the building. Nobody should be convicted of burglary because what they did makes you feel icky. Carol Mitchell calls 911 and says he was on the floor next to her. Carol Mitchell doesn't know who's there. And Nicole Mitchell doesn't leave the house. There is no description from Carol Mitchell of who was in her house. And yet Nicole Mitchell waits patiently. Nicole Mitchell's intent is to check on Carol Mitchell. A burglar runs. A concerned child stays. A burglary charge requires that the government prove that someone had an intent to commit a crime inside the building. You've heard what the government has promised you they will try to prove.
You may approach.
Carol Mitchell has no idea it's Nicole Mitchell. And Nicole Mitchell stays in the house. Nicole Mitchell stays and continues to check on her relative. A burglary charge requires that the state prove that someone had an intent to commit a crime inside the building. You've heard what the state has promised you they will try to prove. If they do what they promised you they would, you're going to hear a lot about dark clothing and flashlights and cars parked on side streets and early dark mornings and things like that. But the only real issue here is Nicole Mitchell's intent. We're not disputing that Nicole entered without consent. She did. But there are two possibilities. Nicole entered to steal something. Nicole Mitchell entered to check on Carol. Unless the state's evidence can rule out that Nicole Mitchell entered just to check on Carol Mitchell, then the verdict must be not guilty.